notice signs of skin aging? The dryness that wasn't there a year ago, a bit of a sag along the jaw, lines that seem to have turned up overnight, and the skincare you've trusted for years, suddenly it's just not doing so much. So what do? You buy something new, then something else, you scroll, you panic, you spend. But here's what today's guest told me. Your skin isn't the problem, it's the messenger. What's showing up on your face has far more to do with what's going on underneath your sleep, your stress, your hormones, than whatever's in a jar. Joanne Wismeyer is a registered nurse, and she built Stella, an app that tracks what's actually happening with your skin over time and lines it up against your sleep, your stress, your cycle, so you can see what's genuinely moving the needle. In today's episode, we talk about the habits that most affect your skin and what you can do both from the inside and the outside to promote long-term, glowing, healthy skin. Let's get started to this episode of the Wellness Simplified podcast. And thank you so much for joining us at Wellness Simplified. This should be a really awesome episode where we can go deep into looking at what's actually aging the skin. And I think from our pre-conversation, there's going to be lots of surprises for people. So I'm looking forward to the conversation.
Thanks, Kelly. Thanks so much for having me on. Yeah, hopefully people can take some little bite-sized pieces of information and really start to just grasp the understanding of their skin and what does influence the aging process.
Awesome. I like to get started by just getting a sense of the guests, who they are and so forth. And to do that, I'd love to hear, how was your morning this morning? Do you have any morning routines? How do you set yourself up?
Okay, this morning, my mornings are usually a little bit of organized chaos. So this morning I got up before my 5-year-old. So usually he comes to wake me up, but this morning I got up before him and I squeezed in a quick workout because I know that movement helps me really kind of gear up for the day and get started and puts me in a really good mindset. So, and then it was actually a beautiful morning. I got Byron up, my son, and looked out the window and there was this beautiful pink sunrise. So it was just really special. So I said, come on, buddy, let's go outside. And he's, just the look in their eyes, they're so young and, they see these beautiful things. And it was just a really nice start to the morning. Yeah, it was beautiful.
That sounds awesome.
A pretty good snapshot of life at the moment. So juggling parenting, work and, health, everything in between. And I think a lot of people can probably relate to that. But then we managed to get to school drop off on time.
Amazing. I feel like when you have I aim for mornings like that, but sometimes they work and sometimes they don't. And I feel like you have to celebrate them when they do work because it's not every day and that's okay.
I will also add that when I got in the car, I forgot it was reader day. And so I ran in the house and grabbed the reader and we still managed to have 1 minute to kick the footy when we got to school. So
oh my God, you're winning, my dear. Yay. And what's one small habit that you've kind of implemented lately that you've been surprised by how effective it's been?
Honestly, I think, there are so many, but actually, one of the biggest things I've learned, through nursing and building Stella, is that everything has a ripple effect. So, sleep affects stress, stress affects hormones, hormones affect skin, and, skin affects confidence, and nothing really exists in isolation. So if I had to choose one thing, it would be, at the moment, prioritizing sleep. So when you're building something that you're passionate about, it's easy for sleep to be one of the first things that goes out the window. And, a lot of busy women can probably relate to that, and whatever your busy looks like. But I've learnt that it doesn't have to be that way.
Totally. So important, prioritizing sleep. I really do think it's the number one.
Yep. And there's an old saying, and my mum used to say it all the time, and I didn't appreciate it at the time, but early to bed, early to rise makes a person healthy, wealthy and wise. And as I've gotten older, I've really started to, see a lot of truth to that.
Yeah, totally. Awesome. Well, let's hear about your story because you're a registered nurse and you went from emergency care to building this amazing skin health platform. So what was that shift? How did that happen?
Well, so I've always been really fascinated by skin biology, science, and all of that, tying in together and just connecting the dots. I get it and I understand it and I just love it. But mostly from my own experience. So like many teenagers, I struggled with really painful cystic acne and I ended up needing some pretty strong, hardcore, medication to get it under control, and it was really effective, but, that doesn't last forever, and, the skin journey continues. And in my 20s, acne came back. It wasn't as severe as it was before, but, it was enough to leave me, with acne scarring, which was always a constant reminder of, the pain and suffering and going through that back in the day. So, so left with the aftermath of the scarring. And to me, skin is, incredibly personal. So whether it's acne, aging, rosacea, pigmentation, all these, things tie into aging as well. It's not just lines and wrinkles, but So what I've learned through my personal experience and my nursing career is that also when people are vulnerable, they're very easy to be marketed to. And, there's always another product, another treatment, or another, promise that doesn't necessarily deliver. So for me, that's why this matters. And it's not about perfect skin, because it doesn't exist. We're living biological beings. It's about helping people understand what's actually happening to their skin so they can make informed decisions and feel comfortable in themselves. So,
Yeah, beautiful. So maybe you could explain just briefly to people how Stella actually works, and then we can dive into some of the things that you found from it.
Yeah. So Stella is a longitudinal skin analysis and tracking platform. So it's a wellness platform for skin. So where you can sync your lifestyle, things like wearables, your products, your treatments. So users take a scan regularly, a couple of times a week, and it tracks things like, redness, pigmentation, breakouts, pores, lines, puffiness, and, facial sagging. So there's about 26 metrics that we track over time. And the interesting part is not the photo itself, because if we just go by that, we're missing so much context. So they can combine information like sleep, stress, even menstrual cycle, activity levels, stress levels, and lifestyle factors that help people understand what's influencing the skin. So instead of asking, why is my skin bad today? We're helping people answer what is happening in my life that improved or worsened at that point in time. Nice. So it was built by a team with backgrounds in dermatology, nursing, technology, AI, and data science. So I'm really proud to have Dr. Alice Rudd, dermatologist, on the team, and then our tech guy and our marketing guy. So it's just, skin is so complex, and we know from that there's no single discipline has all the answers. So we track our steps, we track our sleep, we track our cycles. So it makes sense that we'd be tracking our skin too, the largest organ of our body. So
yeah, no, it's awesome. And, you and I, got talking at the Digital Health Festival, because we both essentially have these health platforms, but yeah, great to meet someone who's doing it in skin. So now I'm really curious to dive into some of the things that you've found through doing this work. I think, a lot of people, whether it's in their mid to late 30s, they start to notice skin changing, whether it's dryness, sensitivity, wrinkles, laxity, all of the things. And most of them just assume it's just aging. But what's actually going on that's causing that?
Yeah, so aging is definitely part of the story, but what is aging? Aging is a word, but it covers so many things. So as we age, we know that collagen production naturally starts to decline. It becomes thinner, cell turnover slows, and we lose elasticity. But a lot of the changes that women notice in their late 30s and 40s and 50s is also heavily influenced by hormones, sleep quality, stress, inflammation, nutrition, and lifestyle. So particularly for women in their late 30s, and 40s, we often see changes related to perimenopause and menopause. So one of the things that women don't realize is that our skin contains estrogen receptors. So as estrogen levels start to fluctuate and then steadily, decline rapidly, we do see rapid changes in collagen production, elasticity, the ability for the skin to retain water, and wound healing. And sometimes, women tell me in the clinic, I've been using the same skincare for years and suddenly it doesn't seem to be doing anything. And often it's not the skincare stopped working, it's that the biology underneath has actually changed. And that's why I think we do ourselves a disservice when we treat skin completely in isolation, like skincare. So don't get me wrong, skincare is absolutely important, and proper formulations and appropriate skincare for different concerns is important. And I will say sunscreen and evidence-based skincare. But if we're only looking at the surface, we really do miss important clues about what is actually happening underneath. So we can kind of treat skin as a messenger that we can, draw a lot of information from.
So you touched on a number of things there about like what causes skin aging. Could you maybe unpack some of those?
So I think a lot of our skin aging is, coming from maybe somewhere else in the body.
Yeah.
And we're missing it by treating the skin like topically in isolation. So skin doesn't exist independently of someone. It's your largest organ, and it's constantly responding to what's happening, like what we feed it, antioxidants, protein. I mean, our collagen is a structural protein in our skin. So, and if we don't, and keratin is a protein. So if we don't eat enough of it, that's going to compromise our skin integrity as well. So poor sleep increases inflammation. Chronic stress can increase cortisol, and cortisol, is associated with that collagen breakdown and changes in the barrier function of the skin. And hormonal fluctuations can affect hydration, the pigmentation, breakouts, the thickness of your skin, all of those things. Even intake of sugar, causing glycation.
Yeah, right. Okay, amazing. So from that perspective, I imagine that you see, depending on the habits that people, not even like the topical skin habits, but the actual health habits that people are following, how well they're aging on the outside. And so, what are some of the main habits that contribute to skin aging? And then conversely, what are some of the habits that, promote a long-term kind of youthful, glowing skin? And from what you said, I can guess some of them, but yeah, good to really make those clear.
Yes. So the things that really accelerate skin aging the most are pretty similar to the things that negatively affect our health overall. So, but one of these things is, and I'll say it again, it's boring and people know about this, but it's UV exposure. It's one of the number one things, and by quite a significant margin as well. So if I could get people to do one thing consistently that really does have that compound effect, it's wear the SPF. And then obviously smoking, poor sleep, chronic stress, excessive alcohol and things like that as well. But
okay, well, let's start with the most important and then maybe we can unpack a few of the other ones. So with the SPF, we live in Australia, like what I have read, but this is general data from other, from scientific journals that are usually published out of the US, and it's about like peak times 9 to, I forget what they said, 4 or 5 being out of the sun. But I think in Australia it's different. And there's also for our health, like it's important to get sunlight and vitamin D and so forth. So what's your recommendation as far as like when to stay out of the sun, when to wear sunscreen, when is a good time to get sun, because sun is also important for our health?
I think limiting yourself to a certain amount of time as well in the sun is helpful. But I think having certain, like you can be aware, like Stella actually integrates the environmental factors like UV into the app as well. So you can use the app to actually track your skin and when you should be wearing SPF most of the time. But yeah, I know that, I mean, in Australia, our ozone layer is quite disturbed as well. So I think that's not really so helpful in our in the protection of our skin. So I would advise to be wearing it most of the time.
And some things that I've heard that have surprised me, and maybe you can elaborate on this, is that like you even need to be wearing sunscreen if you're inside near a window where sun is coming in, or you're driving your kids around, for example. Like things like, I would think to wear sunscreen when I go for a walk. I love walking. I live near the beach. But I would forget to wear sunscreen when I'm driving my kids. And I went to a dermatologist and he was like, oh, your right hand has more pigmentation. I was like, huh, interesting,
100%.
Isn't that interesting? So what's your, like, let's try to think about what people are not thinking of and how often they should be applying sunscreen and like those kind of things that people are not thinking of.
So with sunscreen, there was actually a really interesting photo of, you can probably look it up online. It's a lot of dermatologists actually do show it to patients, is that, like exactly what you said, when you're driving and there was a truck driver and over time he, all of his right side of his face was you could see the damage that the sun exposure over time had caused. Yeah, it was it's really, really interesting to see the compound effect of sunscreen, and even identical twins, you could have one that doesn't use sunscreen. There was another study on that, images on that people used in a lot of presentations. And it's the difference in the breakdown. It causes DNA damage. So, I think there are other ways to get your vitamin D. I don't think it's the be-all, end-all, but spending some time outside, wear your sunscreen.
Yeah, great.
Mm.
Yeah, I like to think about it like first thing, I mean, from a health perspective, and this has been recommended by several guests, and it's something that I recommend as well, is getting sun in your eyes like within 30 minutes of waking up. And that sun, like, unless you're like really crazy and don't have kids and
Yeah.
can sleep until 10 a.m. or something
Oh God.
insane, you're
Yeah.
fine. Whereas, then you probably need sunscreen. But like if you're waking up like I am really early and you're literally watching the sunrise, then
Mm.
I think that sun's fine and that's actually really healthy. But then for the rest of the day, what you're saying is make sure you're not just applying, but also reapplying sunscreen and being aware that it's like of all the places that you might not think of, like the drive or the,
Yeah.
you know,
And not just, putting it on in the morning and that's it. Or people
yes.
assume that their makeup has sunscreen in it so that they don't have to, but that's not necessarily enough. And there's different types of sunscreens. So I think finding one that works for your skin, because everyone is different as well. There's chemical sunscreens, there's physical sunscreens. So finding one that works for you and sticking with it and having that become part of your routine, part of your habit. Yeah.
Cool. Awesome. Okay. So that's number one. Now you've mentioned sleep as being really critical. Why is sleep so critical for the skin? I mean, I know it's critical for your overall health, but why specifically for the skin?
Well, when you're sleeping, your skin is going through the repair process. So you secrete growth hormone, melatonin. So all of these things help to repair the skin. So if we're, going about our day and we've got all of these factors that are essentially traumatizing our skin, whether it be UV, whether it be, different things that we've done to our skin or just living,
Yeah.
by being able to have that good quality sleep, that growth hormone is able to do its thing, our skin can start to repair from the day previously. Yeah. And, that does have a compound effect over time in our barrier function, our inflammation in our skin. And like even in the data with Stella, so the decrease in sleep has correlated with that increased redness in the skin. And texture irregularities and decreased ability, not to mention the dark circles, which is obvious in hindsight. But when you start to track, you can really start to see these things come about.
Yeah, interesting. I mean, that it's when you're having, and I think it's also like important to mention that, all sleep is not equal. So I had an amazing guest on who was talking about brain health. I had two guests on talking about brain health and prevention of cognitive decline and Alzheimer's and so forth. And they were talking about the crucial nature of deep sleep because that's when your brain is literally kind of, being cleansed.
The
Same
lymphatic
with
system.
yeah, exactly. Same with all of your organs. So I suppose it makes absolute sense that it's no different for your skin because it's just it's the largest organ in the body. But I imagine it's again, it's not just the amount of time you sleep; it's also the quality of sleep that you're getting and how much deep sleep.
Yeah, so even things like alcohol a couple of hours before bed can be quite disruptive to that deep sleep. And you might, maybe it might make you have a glass of wine and you feel a bit sleepy and tired and relaxed, but it actually impacts the quality of your sleep. And things like screen time, trying to limit that. And these are all things that we, it's all well and good to say, but life is busy. But these, are in fact things that do affect our sleep and our hormones. Exactly. So, women going through perimenopause and menopause, that decrease in progesterone, that natural progesterone helps to make us feel calm and induce GABA and things like that, which help us to have good quality sleep too and feel relaxed.
Yeah. And in terms of collagen, that's another, you mentioned collagen and you mentioned protein. Do you have any recommendations on like what's the most bioavailable or anything like that? Yeah.
I know there's a lot of different collagen supplements on the market.
Mm,
I wouldn't be confident as to say that, one of them works or not, but I would say, can't hurt, might help. But making sure you actually have enough good dietary protein in your diet. I don't think, like, if your diet is lacking good quality protein, but you're taking a collagen supplement, it's just not going to do the job. Like, if
yeah.
you're, you know what I mean? You can't, it's like, I love this saying for, when you have an exercise routine, you can't exercise your way out of a poor diet. I think it's similar to skin.
Totally.
Yeah.
Yeah. And is there any other nutrients that are really critical for the skin?
So I like so beta carotene. That's a really good one. So it's in orange kind of fruits and vegetables, so carrots, pumpkins, all those kinds of orange foods,
Mm,
um, and that's really good for skin health, eye health as well. But it helps to I always like to call it like an edible retinoid
hmm
in a way, because it converts to vitamin A in the skin, and that's really important for healthy functioning skin as well. So, and then there's so many other nutrients. You've got your antioxidants, because we're exposed to oxidative stress throughout the day,
mm.
and by being able to supplement and take in those antioxidants helps to reduce those reactive oxygen species, which helps then maintain our skin health as well. So it's got a very important effect on our skin. Vitamin C, all of
What about
these.
for dryness? Like if people have dry skin, is it kind of like your fish oils or
Yes,
is there
omegas.
anything else?
Yeah, yeah. So omegas, having enough good quality omegas, is really, really important for good skin health. Um, Particularly if someone's got, that really true dry, because people might say that they've got dry skin, but is it actually dry, lipid dry, or is it hydrate, like water dry? Is it
Mm.
dehydrated from water? Is it lack of oil production? So, yeah, that's another really, really, really important one. And yeah, it's all, as you can see, it's all connected, so it's not just one thing.
Of
I
course,
mean,
it's like
yeah.
everything.
Mm.
And what about, I mean, I'm not sure if you know, if you've come across this, but like these days you hear so much about more advanced things like, supplementation, peptides, et cetera, that are meant to be specifically for skin and hair, like copper peptides, for example. Do you know, have you got any thoughts on things like that?
Well, I would always say, I think there's the thing with social media and
Hmm
all of these things coming about on social media, people using, injectable peptides and things like that. I think it's really dangerous, because I don't think we have enough evidence base for a lot of these things that people, influencers or skinfluencers, are recommending. So I think that's a really, really like a big problem. That is, well, it's a problem. But I skin cells take 28 days roughly to turn over.
Yeah.
So I think a lot of people assume that what they're doing topically is going to happen overnight, whether it be
Mm.
peptides or whatever it might be. But no matter what you're using, it actually takes 2 or 3 cycles to really start to see the effects of skincare. And we live in a very, very time poor, impatient, short attention world
Totally.
at the moment, because we're kind of
Yeah.
forced to. Um, but people don't give themselves enough time to see these effects.
Mm.
So, what might work for someone might not work for someone else. But to really understand what's driving the change and start tracking to see what's actually driving the change for that person, is the only way to really develop a comprehensive treatment plan that someone can actually stick with to actually um, make some changes that are meaningful in their skin.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, I think that's the case in general. People want quick fixes. I mean, often, well, almost in general, not often. It's just like nailing the fundamentals. But I do feel that once you've got those fundamentals really dialed in, then you can make, significant gains by, different advanced protocols, but there's no use doing them unless you've got the most fundamental things really sorted, which a lot of people don't. So on that, let's say someone's listening and they're like, okay, I get you. I'm going to wear my sunscreen. I'm going to reduce my stress, sleep better, increase my protein and my collagen intake, all the things that you're saying. But I've been partying for the past 30, I don't know, 20 years, and I've already got skin laxity or damage or whatever it is they have. What are like the most effective treatments that you've seen that address like those? I would say, and correct me if I'm wrong, the three big kind of conditions of aging: wrinkles, pigmentation, laxity. So, what treatments, not skin, actually help reverse some of those things?
So I think there's a lot of evidence-based things that actually work, well, there is. So the first thing I would say that there isn't one thing that is the right answer, because not all wrinkles, pigmentation, and laxity have the same cause. So, for example, pigmentation, that's hormonally derived, like melasma or something like that, is going to be treated differently to someone that's had like years and years and years of sun exposure. So really understanding what the driver is. But if, there's a lot of energy-based devices that can be quite helpful. Me personally, with my acne scarring, one of the things that really helped me was microneedling when I was younger. So that was really investing in that collagen banking and getting that, building the skin up. Because once you understand what's driving it, then you can make decisions about what actually might help. But in terms of topical skincare, one of my favorites is retinol, right? So as we age, that, how I was talking about that 28-day cycle where the base of the epidermis, like skin cells, are produced in the base of the epidermis, and it takes about 28 days to get to the top and desquam and come off.
Yeah.
So as we get older, that lengthens a little bit as well. So it gets a bit longer, a bit slower. So retinol is really helpful because it increases that cellular turnover. So that's really helpful for many skin concerns. So wrinkles, collagen, pigmentation, even acne, because it's getting rid of that clog, like prevents the pores from getting clogged, because it's increasing the cell turnover. So that's one of my favorite things. That in combination with SPF, those are really my favorite things. Not tolerable for everyone to be using retinol. Again, that's case dependent, depending on the severity or sensitivity. But that is one of my favorite and one of the most evidence-based skincare.
And with retinol, like, is there, because you see so many creams on the market, is there some that they just don't have enough percentage that it's like it's kind of a joke? Like you see some vitamins where the percentage of the thing that they're saying is so small that actually it's just a marketing hype. So is there something that you would say to people when you're looking at a retinol cream, like make sure that it's got at least whatever it is percent?
Well, not necessarily. I think it's actually more the formulation. So you can have, some people might need to start on a really small percent, but as long as the formulation is right, because you want it to actually get to the point to where it's actually going to start working in the skin. So I think it's more the formulation.
So how does somebody listening, like, what would help them know where to look?
I would speak to a skincare professional. So I would avoid looking on TikTok, Instagram, and all of these other, social media platforms. Definitely speak to a healthcare professional. You can also track with Stella, and if it's recommended that you start a retinol, there's certain products that can be recommended. But I would definitely start by having a conversation with your healthcare professional, your dermatologist or your dermal therapist, to really get an understanding, because there's a lot of noise out there, and it's not all evidence-based. So
Totally.
yeah.
And what else, like whether it's you've mentioned, like whether it's a treatment or it's a protocol, like a protocol treatment product, are there any other things for those kind of key signs of aging that you think are worth people at least investigating? Because like you said, there's tons of noise. So what's the where do you separate what's noise and what actually has some evidence?
I think one of the things is to give your skin enough time to actually try these skincare products. So SPF, again, I'm not going to go into that again, but ingredients like the retinoids and the vitamin C and the niacinamide, and azelaic acid is really good for if someone maybe has some rosacea, because I think rosacea is actually quite underdiagnosed. So that's one thing that, with the facial flaring of the redness and all of that inflammatory stuff going on in the in the skin, azelaic acid is another one that's quite helpful for that. But really looking after your barrier. So sometimes it's not about having a 12-step skincare routine. Definitely the consistency beats that kind of every time. So it's slow biology. Even the best products in the world still need time to work, and people often expect, in a week or two to have completely different skin, but you've still got, that process of shedding those other layers of skin is actually still happening. So that, don't be impatient. It's really hard not to be, but let it take, let it run the course, and consistency.
You mentioned taking care of the barrier. How do you take care of the barrier?
So the barrier is, the outer layer of your skin. It's made from lipids and ceramides and things like that. So it helps to keep, prevent transepidermal water loss, which is the evaporation of water outside of the skin. So it helps to keep moisture in the skin, and it also helps protect the skin, keep irritants out. So a lot of skin conditions and inflammatory concerns are actually caused, or made worse by having an impaired skin barrier. And there's a lot of, talk about skin barrier, but I've done it myself when I was younger and trying to tackle acne and pimples, and I would put all these things on my face, and I'd be creating some kind of chemical concoction on my face, and inadvertently stripping my barrier. And then, repairing that process is slow. It takes time, but it is necessary. So even if, when we're talking about aging, there's so many things that we can throw at our skin, but it's a fine line between really stripping that barrier and helping to support our skin and get the most out of our skin. Yeah.
And as far as layering on things, because I'm keen to hear kind of the correct layer. Maybe I'll use myself as a guinea pig, and you can tell me if I'm layering correctly. So personally, in the morning, I just wash my face with water, and then I always add hyaluronic acid. I feel like that's made a big difference to my skin because it's naturally drier. And I've read that you're meant to do that when your skin is kind of moist. So I try to do it only pat dry skin, and then I add vitamin C, and then I add a cream, and then sunscreen. That's my morning. And then nighttime, I double cleanse, which I never knew until recently. Sorry, my face has some the weird shadows.
You look like an angel.
Yeah. So then I do the double cleanse, hyaluronic acid. Again, that's cheap and easy. And then I have just started experimenting with occasionally I'll use a copper serum, and then I alternate a night doing that and a night doing just a retinoid like you mentioned, and then cream over the top. So is that as far as what can we learn of what's working or what's not working in terms of that kind of routine as far as stacking things on? I always talk about habit stacking.
Well, so I always am of the belief that you apply the thinnest products first. So because you want your skin to actually be able to absorb these products. Yeah. So, even if you put your, serums, so you cleanse, then it's your serums, and then it's your moisturizers, and then it's your SPF over the top, obviously during the day. So that's the routine that you have does sound quite appropriate. But I do recommend you track with Stella, because you can put all your products into it and then, start to actually see what's working. And the interesting thing about that is you can see your, there's time frames for each different product. So they run as different experiments. So at the end of that experiment cycle, it'll tell you whether it's worth keeping or not. It's actually quite interesting.
Yeah, I saw that feature. I have been trying it. Because we have something similar in Vitopia and I love it as well. So same thing, like you have your general protocol, health protocol, and then you try just something else. Like, for example, I'm going to stop eating 3 hours before bed instead of 1 or 2. And that's
Yeah.
all change I'm making. And I'm going to see how that impacts my sleep. So I love how you can do that, where you have your set skin protocol and then you can say, okay, now I'm just adding one other thing. Yeah, it's
Mm.
cool.
Yeah, because then you can really start to learn and get an understanding. And that's what real, I guess, skin intelligence and this platform is about. And it's really individualized then as well. So, yeah, but no, it sounds like you've got a pretty down pat. So, how are you going with the retinol?
I've been using it for a while, so I don't really notice that much difference anymore. Maybe I did at the start. I've noticed since because the hyaluronic acid and vitamin C is more recent, and that's definitely made a difference. I would just on my body just use like a cream, but my skin is naturally drier, especially in winter. And I've started doing body oil, then cream. And I've also started putting some of like a cheap retinol on my body like once or twice a week. And I feel like that I notice makes a difference.
Mm.
Yeah, I do feel, and maybe you can comment on this, and I've definitely done this, is we kind of do all this stuff for our face and then forget everywhere else.
Yes, absolutely. That is a very good point and very, very true. So, like, yeah, you'll see, like, people, women who have, they're a bit older and they've got this beautiful, canvas in their face. And it just looks so different to the rest of the body. And hands
Yeah.
are the biggest giveaway as
Yes,
well.
yes,
Yeah,
yes.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
But it's not about chasing perfection. It's about maintaining and being aware of what's influencing your skin. And life is busy, so
Totally.
if you can just learn about what's going on and what's influencing your skin and not focusing about all the noise in the media and you should try this, that, and the other, I think, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Like I have a bit of a love-hate relationship with Instagram. Like sometimes I like it, but then, and luckily it's learnt that I like natural things. But it feeds me then like I'm constantly getting shit about like face yoga and tallow cream because, it's figured I'm Miss Natural and I'm into natural
Oh,
stuff.
I
But
love
like
it.
even that gets over the top, you're like, oh, maybe I should do this face exercise or this or blah blah blah, it just gets too
Yeah.
much. You need to just decide on something for yourself and kind of stick to it and see how it goes.
Yeah, yeah. I remember seeing someone rub banana peels on their face, saying it was going to remove their acne. I thought, oh, okay. I wonder what R&D went into that. But
Yeah, I think I used to do toothpaste as a teenager.
I
I'm
did
sure that was
too.
pretty
Yeah.
bad. Yeah.
When I had really bad acne before I started that other treatment, I remember putting yogurt on my face, and my parents were
Yeah.
like, "What are you doing?" Walking around with oats on my face, and
Yeah. I'd have like the white dots of
mm,
the things we do.
yeah.
Is there anything, I mean, there are constantly a lot of advancements in this field. And are there any that you're looking towards and being like, oh, I'm actually excited about that? Compared to we've just talked about, there's a shit ton of noise.
Yeah.
Is there anything that's actually you're like, oh, that looks cool, that looks exciting?
I'm really excited about the skin tightening devices that are evolving. So I don't know if you've heard about high intensity focus ultrasound. That's been around for a while now, and that
Yeah.
is intended to help to lift and tighten the skin. I mean, really, if you're wanting to really lift and tighten the skin, I mean, you probably need to speak to a surgeon. But there are
Mm,
things that we can do to improve, right?
mm,
That's the goal of it. And so therapy is one that is a type of high intensity focus ultrasound that helps to um, it penetrates down into the SMAS layer, which is supposed to be the area that actually is addressed in facelifts and things like that. So by using heat to be able to tighten and tighten the skin that way is one treatment. But there's a new one. It's called XERF,
mhm.
XERF. That's a new one to look out for. I know Dr. Alice Rudd really likes that treatment, but yeah, so
What was the one you mentioned before about skin tightening? You said HIFU and then you said something else and I didn't catch it.
Therapy is a type of high intensity focus ultrasound. That was a brand, sorry, that
How do you spell that? Because I'll put all these. So I'll put
Yeah,
hypho and I'll put zero Z no
X X
XERF.
XERF. Yeah.
And the middle one, how do you spell it? I'll put this in the show notes for people.
Ultherapy. ULTHERAPY. Ultherapy.
Okay, I'll Google and I'm sure I'll be able to find it. So they're interesting things, but from a skin kind of laxity perspective.
Yeah, and I think a new one that's come is ZERF is the one I'd really be looking for.
Hmm.
XERF. It's a non-surgical radio frequency skin tightening and lifting treatment. So it combines. So it's dual frequency. So it stimulates collagen
Nice.
and tightens the skin from the down in the deeper layers, the structural layers, without needles and so it's quite. It's a new advancement that's come into Australia. So
Awesome. Cool. I
yeah.
mean, I think things like that that you can do naturally without like needing to
Mm.
resort to any whatever it is, surgery or whatever,
Yeah.
is great that things like that are coming out and they exist.
Yeah, and I'm really excited. I'm less excited about miracle products and more excited about like these personal insights that you can gain and learn from. So
Mm.
it's moving away from these TikTok trends and understanding your own biology well enough to know what's actually moving the needle for you and your skin.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it makes sense because I mean that's our whole premise behind Vitopia as well is that, and I think that's the way the world is going. People don't want your generalized protocols or your generalized supplements or your generalized whatever because,
Yeah.
the way my skin, my health works is different from you and everybody else. And so
Mm.
the more we can take this kind of bio-individual approach and also trust ourselves and learn about ourselves, the better. Absolutely.
And where AI and wearable technology and like longitudinal tracking can actually, it's becoming quite exciting. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, totally. Awesome. Okay, we've covered a lot today. So let's go to, for people listening who are inspired to take their health seriously, let's say they have kind of had a haphazard approach. Now, obviously, we're recommending that they try Stella, and you're going to tell us about that at the end, where they can find that. But I like to leave people with habits and like where would you recommend they start? You could make that a bit broader and then if you could narrow that down because the promise of the show is that we leave everybody with like one habit. So you could start more slightly more broader, but then if you could end it with what's the one habit that if you do nothing else, you would try that.
Okay. So start getting curious about your skin to start with. So, um, not thinking of your skin in isolation, but really thinking about it. I guess it's a perspective shift
Hmm.
that it's not just skin in isolation, it's part of the system and it's responding to what's happening throughout the body every single day. So, some non negotiables, I would say, let's just bite size, daily SPF, a retinoid if it's appropriate for you, adequate protein intake, and good quality sleep.
Awesome.
Those
That's
things.
nice and easy.
Yeah.
And because I promise it, if they could only do one of those, what would it be?
I'm
People
going to
hate me
say
with this question.
sleep. I'm going to,
Sleep, yeah.
oh no, with an SPF. Okay. Can it be two?
Okay, whatever.
Sleep and SPF.
Okay, cool. Sleep and SPF. Awesome. Very cool. Thank you. That's great. And there, look, people listening, those things are everything that you've mentioned is really doable. And even for myself, I'm pretty good on SPF, but even listening to you focus on it so much, I'm like, I should put some sun. I used to have sunscreen in the car and I'd forgotten about it. So I'm like, okay, go back to that. Yeah, just simple because I'm all about habits and helping people turn these things into habits. So I suppose it's sticking some sunscreen in your handbag, putting it in your car so you never like forget about it. Or if you have an office with bright light shining in, that you have some sitting there, just things to make it a habit.
Yeah, keep it near your makeup bag. Keep it in wherever you have frequent access to, something to do with your face.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, cool. Awesome. Perfect. Thank you so much. Now, where can people find out about you, but also more importantly, about Stella and trying it out?
So if you want to try Stella, you can search See Stella. That's SEE Stella on the App Store or Google Play. So it's available on both. And we also have a website, so www.cstella.co. So that's where you can find us. We also have an Instagram page as well. But yeah,
Awesome.
I would recommend.
I'll put all of those links in the show notes, and yeah, go give it a try, and then maybe you can comment to both Joe and I about how you've gone and what insights you've found from using it.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, Kelly.
Yeah, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it.
You too. Bye.
Bye. Now it's your turn. Take what you've learned today and put it into action. Try the habit, run the experiment, and actually track how you go. I'll be doing it right alongside you and sharing on socials, so come find me there. Links are in the show notes. Tell me what's working, what isn't, and what questions are coming up. I genuinely want to know. And if today's episode helped, share it with someone who needs it. And if you haven't already, hit subscribe so we can keep optimizing our health together, one simple step at a time. Take care, and I'll see you next week.